Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Thursday. It is December 29th, 2022, Week 17 NFL Podcast 13 game slate. I know there's a decent NBA slate today. So, first time this year that we've had an actual decent NBA slate on a Thursday, but we're going to continue doing the football podcast today. Ton of NBA content over on RotoGrinders, so you can check that out. But as always, for the NFL podcast here on Thursday, I'm joined by my buddy Keith Eister, Eys819. Keith, what's happening, my friend?
The Wednesday basketball slate, I really liked the slate, but it did not go very well for me. I faded a Kongwu who nearly 10x'd, was hoping for that foul trouble again, didn't find it. He struggled in the first half, but ended up crushing late, and Alec Burks put up like a career game and just destroyed every value play on the slate. I played a bunch of Milwaukee value and they all busted. So Alec Burks, Onyeka Okongwu kind of put me in the bag tonight on NBA. So I'm ready to talk some NFL for sure.
Week 17, which usually is like, hey, week 17, we're wrapping up. We got one more week after this. So, man, I'm excited. I really am, excited. Giannis, took some props on him. He's having a game.
I love Giannis tonight. Yep.
I saw, so we were filling out NBA expert survey around the same time today. And a lot of our answers were matching up. So,
yep.
I'm glad I did a lot of fantasy props and not a lot of DFS from what you're saying. So, I had a good props night. Zion points was like a staple for me today, and I think he's at like 40 last time I checked, which he absolutely crushed. So, but hope you had a good Christmas. Do you guys like family Christmas it up and do like white elephant and stuff, or no?
No, just a traditional gift exchange, no white elephant or anything like that. I stayed in Arizona this year. Typically, I fly back to Chicago, but just a small get together here with a couple of friends, family back in Chicago.
All right, yeah. So white elephant, always so much fun.
Good. Yep.
I am curious. I haven't done this in a while, so. Yeah, we're going to do this. I haven't given away a RotoGrinders t-shirt in a long time. It feels like it's been a long time. It probably has been over a year because I always forget to do it. It has nothing to do with that. But we're going to give away a RotoGrinders t-shirt. All you got to do is go over to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page on the comment section, not in chat, in the comment section. Like the video, comment your least favorite thing that was exchanged in your white elephant. If you do a white elephant, if you don't do a white elephant, I'll try to give away another shirt next week, week 18. So go comment. My least favorite. So my family, we do the white elephant, and my least favorite this year was I don't even know who brought it, but one of my family members brought Bass sandals, like those flip flops that look like Bass. And I'm very glad that I did not get stuck with those. I got a taco salad bowl maker, and if anybody knows me, I love tacos. So I was actually pumped. This is like one of the first years that like walked out of my like family's house and I was like, yeah, man, I'm really glad about this white elephant. But if you do white elephant, fun little giveaway. I'll pick someone who this is the worst one. Whoever's the worst one. If only one person comments, you get a RotoGrinders t-shirt. So Morning Grind YouTube page, like, subscribe, and comment below with your favorite or least favorite thing that it was exchanged at your white elephant this year. So don't make something up, make it fun. So that's all I got, Keith. We have 13 NFL games. We have a lot to talk about. This is gonna be a long podcast. Long podcast. So much to get through. So I think we're just gonna jump right in and get started here. We got Arizona at Atlanta, 42.5 total. Atlanta is a 3-point favorite in this one. Indoors. Weather, not as much of a factor this week, it seems. We'll see what Roth has to say later on in the week, but just seems like it's going to be cold in some places, but I don't let that really affect my decisions too much unless it's going to be windy for kickers. But we don't have to worry about that in DFS because kickers, yeah. Talk to me, Arizona, Colt McCoy expected to start back at quarterback here. I don't know if that's, I mean, it's better than McSorley, I think.
Yeah.
Saw him throw for at least 218 yards in his 3 starts where he didn't end the game hurt. So, I mean, helps the production of Hopkins potentially. It helps the production of, Hollywood Brown. Great matchup going up against Atlanta. What are your thoughts here on Arizona?
Yeah, I kind of like this game. Domes still matter, even though there's not near as much weather as there was last week. There's still an improvement over any outdoor game, basically. So this being in a dome, the Cardinals get the upgrade at quarterback, like you mentioned. I think that does have an impact here. We saw Hopkins get targeted a bunch last week, but McSorley just wasn't able to get the ball to him. So I have interest in Arizona here. James Conner's role over the last 5-6 weeks has been one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. He's playing like 95% plus of the snaps. I'm not scared of this Atlanta defense. I like James Conner on his own. I probably won't be stacking with Colt McCoy, but I do like some of the receivers. Hopkins is expensive, but I certainly think there's a ceiling there. And Dortch is a guy that just went nuts last week. And I think I'm going to be careful a little bit on this one because I think that was a little bit of the quarterback play. Like McSorley is just not really, he doesn't have NFL level arm talent. He's a fantastic runner. I think he makes decent decisions, but just doesn't have the arm talent to play quarterback in the NFL. So he utilized the slot receiver a ton. I think you can take a look at Dortch, but I would be cautious about that workload. I definitely prefer Hopkins if I'm going wide receiver here. I don't mind the savings down to Brown, but I would prefer Hopkins, I think.
The red zone targets for Hopkins is why he is 7,700 compared to Hollywood Brown at 55. I think if Hollywood Brown were to like break a big one, if he scores, he could easily match Hopkins. I think Hopkins is more likely to score. I love the James Conner call in this matchup, 7,200. I mean, there's some sites that you could do like receiving and rushing props like combined.
Yeah.
This guy has been 100-yard machine here recently in that category. So check that prop. I mean, this is a fantastic matchup going up against Atlanta. They allow the 7th most passing yards and the 8th most rushing yards per game. They're ranked 30th in DVOA, 30th in DVOA against the pass. So great spot. I mean, this is a spot where Colt McCoy could have a good game. I'm not doing it at 52. The quarterback position is loaded this week. We have 13 games again. We've had split slates. We've had all these like holidays and that kind of stuff here recently. We got a big slate. No more bye weeks. Week 17, games matter. I just don't see myself playing Colt McCoy even at 5,200 in a great matchup. On the Atlanta side of things, I mean, Ritter definitely throwing the ball more than Mariota did, which should not shock anybody. I think a lot of people are still, why would Mariota playing so long? But definitely tank season for Atlanta. I mean, Drake London, 4,900. We're looking at a guy with 32 targets over the last 3 weeks at 4,900. Like, they just don't want to raise his price tag. Definitely one of my favorite value plays on the slate.
Yeah, I'm on board with Drake London also. I like this game environment. The quarterback changes certainly helped. He was a guy who was getting targeted massively early in the season, like the first couple of weeks, and then he disappeared for a long time. But that target share is completely back now, like you mentioned. I think London is a great value at 4,900. A little interested in the running back situation as well. We've seen Tyler Algier carve out a pretty decent role here, and he's had back-to-back good weeks. I think you can take some shots on him at 5,300. It's a big slate. He's not the most comfortable play. I don't think they have any long-term investment in Patterson. So why not just give Algier some more carries? I don't mind going to him at 5,300.
I like that call a lot. I mean, this is the time of the year where you kind of see what you have, right? You have coaching and staff kind of, hey, what do we need to be focusing on in free agency? What do we need to be focusing on in the draft? So, I mean, if Algier could potentially be a guy that is useful, I mean, he's definitely interesting. I mean, Atlanta, they're out of it, kind of. I mean, kind of technically. I don't know if they've officially been eliminated, but the NFC South is such a mess in general that I don't know who's in and who's out. I know if Tampa wins this week against Carolina, they've clinched.
Yeah,
So
that's what they basically need Tampa. They need everybody in the division to lose out to even have a chance, I think.
yeah, but they can't, right? Because Carolina beats Tampa this week. So I don't think mathematically Atlanta can get in. I don't think they really want to. I mean, they've lost 4 straight. Any opportunity that they had to win the worst division in football kind of fell through. So, like Drake London, I love the Tyler Algier call. We saw 60 to 35% after almost a 50-50% on the season last week. So if they do stick to that kind of share, I mean, this is a guy that definitely has some upside. I don't think Arizona gets like a huge lead in this game, and we see a ton of targets again to Zacchaeus like we saw last week. He had 7 targets. He only had 18 yards. It wasn't like the best targets in the world, but I think that taking some shots on Algier, taking some shots with Drake London, running it back with like a Connor, a Hollywood Brown, or a Hopkins is kind of how I get exposure to a game that like seems kind of ugly, but like DFS wise, I mean, there's some potential in this game. So I mean, Atlanta's a 3-point home favorite here against Arizona. That tells you a lot about Arizona in general. Moving on, we got the Colts and the Giants, 38.5 total here. Giants a 5.5-point favorites. I mean, Indiana, Nick Foles looked. Nick Foles.
Why are they staying with him? Like, I guess there's no better. Like, why not just? I know you've already given Ellinger a chance, but why not just see 1 more week or 2 more weeks if he can't figure something out? Like, we know Nick Foles is not the answer.
I mean, Matt Ryan played a lot better than Nick Foles. And I know Matt Ryan isn't the long-term answer either, but I don't think Nick Foles is the long-term answer. I don't know. I agree with you. I think the Giants defense is very much in play this week. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I mean, I think we have to have a conversation at least about Zach Moss. You know, this is a fantastic matchup. The Giants allow the second most or fourth most rushing yards. They're 31st in DVOA against the run. Zach Moss is 5,400. He was the guy last week. He's going to be the guy. Like, we're looking at 64 and 72% of the carries or percent of the snaps the last 2 weeks. So even in a matchup I don't really love, like Pittman or Woods or anybody else, I think you have to have the conversation for Zach Moss. I think he's just too cheap for his potential role.
I struggle with him on DraftKings, and that's just because he has no passing game role at all. He's seen 2 targets, even with massive snap shares in the last 2 weeks. Deion Jackson is very clearly fallen out of favor. I don't know exactly what happened there in that situation, but even then, Moss still didn't find any targets. They gave those to Jordan Wilkins. I guess he only got 1. So, like, Foles just wasn't targeting the running backs at all. But Moss's passing game role is tough to play on DraftKings. I think he's fine on FanDuel. There's certainly touchdown equity here. I don't mind the price tag, but just without the passing game role, it's tough to find a ceilings, especially on a full PPR site.
Yeah, I mean, if Granson doesn't play, Woods is going to be the lead tight end. It's Nick Foles throwing the ball to him. I mean, that's my biggest gripe. I mean, we know that Pittman is going to have a pretty decent target share, but it's so hard to get behind the Colts in this spot because, I mean, I feel like they're kind of tanking. I mean, they're 4-10. They have nothing to play for. They fired their coach. They brought in I can't think of his name right now. But
Jeff Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. I mean, so is Jeff Saturday really going to be the answer next year? I don't think he is the head coach next year, but we'll see. Maybe. You never know. I mean, they seem like they want to rally behind him. Who knows? But my only concern with Pittman and my only concern with Woods is Nick Foles is throwing the football. I mean, they should be trailing in this game. So if you want to play that trailing type of role, Woods is he's 2,800. Maybe you take some shots on Woods here. Big game earlier this year when everyone was out against, was it Pittsburgh? So Yeah, I
Tight
mean,
end is surprisingly strong this week, but as far as punt goes, I think Woods, as long as Granson is out, Woods is definitely in that conversation. But I think there's actually some legitimate tight ends to pay for this week.
yeah, I mean, Pittman for me, like he's been someone that I've been very high on all year. I just watching Nick Foles play last week, maybe he plays better this week, but I mean, yeah, I don't see playing a ton of Pittman this week. I mean, the matchup's not bad, but yeah, it's tough. The Giants side, I mean, if you look at the numbers on the season, the Colts are really not a bad defense, but they're without some pieces here to finish the season. So I mean, it's not their same Colts defense that it's been all season. What are your thoughts here on the Giants?
I have some interest, and it's just partly because the receivers are so cheap. We saw it, like, obviously it was a shootout against Minnesota. Minnesota has one of the worst pass defenses in the league. The Giants wide receivers all did really well last week. So I think you can go back there. Richie James at 4,300 is probably the most attractive since he's the cheapest. Hodgins is the guy we saw blow up last week with 11 targets, found the end zone. He's only 4,500. These guys didn't really get massive bumps. They were all in the 3Ks last week, and they're in the low 4Ks now, but still in play. I'm not scared of Indy defense. Slayton as the most expensive is the hardest to get to, I would say, but even him at 4,900, he can break a big play. I don't know that I'm using Daniel Jones yet. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of options on this slate, being 13 games. Daniel Jones is in the conversation, though, because he has some really cheap stacking partners. And then I'll have a little bit of Saquon Barkley as well, just because we've seen that role occasionally for him this year. That's just phenomenal. His production fell off a little bit there for a little while, but he's looked better the last 2 weeks. So don't mind the matchup here against Indy. Like you said, the defense is a little bit banged up. Shaq Leonard basically hasn't played all year, and they're missing a couple other pieces too. One of their corners is out for sure, but I like Barkley a decent amount. Expensive. There's some other running backs I prefer, but he's in play for sure.
Giants very live for a playoff spot. Barkley last week played, I think it was like 92%, 92.5% of the snaps last week. So, I mean, Saquon, any kind of game script, if they're up, he'll run. If they're down, he'll be, I mean, he ran 30 plus routes last week. So he's just massive. I mean, my best lineup last week was a Jones, Hodgson, James, Hawkinson, Jefferson stack. It did really well in tournaments. So, and I was overweight on Slayton too. It just happened to be like one of those I'm going to build this way type of lineups, and it really worked out. Had Christian McCaffrey done anything, that team was top 100 in a few tournaments. If Christian McCaffrey had done anything,
in the afternoon,
that team would have smashed, man. And Pollard dropping the touchdown. So it had Pollard and McCaffrey, and it still did not do well. But anyway, listen, I made money. I'm not going to complain. Not complaining. We're not complaining today, Keith. Basketball's over. We're done with the complaining. No. So, but yeah, I mean, the Giants, I think, are pretty straightforward. I don't think you take shots on the tight end. I think you take shots on Slayton, Hodgson, James, and Barkley. I don't think I play Daniel Jones this week. We're going to talk about plenty of quarterbacks, and really going to this next game is where we're going to talk about them. We got Chicago at Detroit. 52.5 total in this one. Detroit, a 5.5 point favorite. This was brought up 2 weeks ago on the podcast, and I told everyone I couldn't wait for this game. I'm very, very excited for this game. I mean, the Bears have nothing to play for outside of just seeing, like, is Justin Fields going to be, the guy or not? He's not even on the injury report this week. So, yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic matchup for both teams. The Lions are still live to make the playoffs, so they're still playing for something. Like, you couldn't have asked for a better game in Detroit. I mean, highest total on the weekend, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Let's go Chicago first. Your Bears. I know I know it's a tough time to be a Bears fan, but I mean, I read something today that like Chase Claypool could be back. Or he didn't practice again Wednesday. That's not good. But what are your thoughts here on the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, you sent out a little preview tweet for the podcast, and Justin Fields made that addition. So I'm pretty sure we're aligned here.
Yeah.
Fields is a smash this week. Like this Detroit defense, we saw them get roasted again last week, and that was outdoors. We're now in back into the dome where we've seen multiple shootouts with Detroit involved. This Bears team does not play defense whatsoever. So 52.5, I believe, is the total. I don't think that's high enough. Like this is a fantastic game environment. The hardest part is what to do or who to stack Fields with. Fields is priced up, but dude just continues to run a ton. Didn't have much success against Buffalo last week, but they're one of the best defenses in the NFL. I am not concerned about that whatsoever against this Detroit team. Justin Fields should rush for close to 100 yards. He is still within range of Lamar Jackson's season rushing record. I think he needs 200 and some yards or 190, something like that. I think he's still interested in breaking that. Fields is going to run a ton in this spot, so I don't even think you have to stack him up. The receiver room is a mess. I'm not even probably trying to parse through that at all. You mentioned Claypool on the injury report, Pettis and St. Brown, like just in addition to not being talented, are also banged up. So Cole Kmet is like, if you're going to stack Fields, it's Kmet for me. I don't even hate a David Montgomery pairing, but I definitely wouldn't do it with more than one. And I'm totally fine running Fields naked and bringing back a couple of Lions on the other side. But agree, this is the best game environment of the week.
Yeah, I mean, we just watched Foreman and Hubbard run. I think it was close to 300 rushing yards. I think it was like 290 or something. So Montgomery has to be in the conversation this week. I mean, he's an excellent like pivot in tournaments off of Fields. Fields is going to be popular this week. He should be. He's kind of pricey at 7,900. So like, if you don't get that like rushing upside game from him, he could easily bust in this game. So I think Montgomery is a fantastic pivot. Like if you want to go Jared Goff, who I think is in play on the other side of this game as well. If you want to go Goff at $2,300 cheaper on DraftKings and run it back with like a Montgomery, I think that is definitely in viable option. I mean, these are two terrible teams. Detroit's not good. They're 7-8. They have a chance to make the playoffs. This is a game they're going to focus on. I mean, they're a 5.5-point favorite at home. Chicago, I mean, they don't play any defense. They're going to be trailing.
The Bears are still in the conversation for the number one overall pick. Houston has played really well the last couple of weeks. They won last week, and now the Bears are only a game behind Houston. So the Bears don't want to win this game. Like their defense, I think they're gonna allow Detroit to score if it push comes to shove, but Fields is still going to be out there trying to get that rushing record. It's kind of how I see this playing out. It's just a perfect scenario. Like they don't have any interest in stopping Detroit, but Fields is still chasing rushing records, which is how we score fantasy points with Justin Fields. So pretty perfect environment here.
Again, I do think that like Montgomery is the pivot. I don't think it's like a Cole Kmet or anything like that. Montgomery is the straight up pivot for me.
We did see Herbert return last week. Just worth noting.
Yeah.
He didn't play a ton. I'm checking his snap share right now. 37% of the snaps. I could see that work into like the 45% range possibly, but I still think Montgomery over Herbert. I think that does actually keep Montgomery's ownership lower than it probably should be for this spot. Montgomery is still clearly ahead of Herbert, I would say. But just worth noting that Herbert is back. And he's really cheap too. I wouldn't hate, like, if you're in a very large tournament milli maker type deal, Herbert at 4K is not out of the question, in my opinion.
All right, let's go to the Detroit side of this game. I mean, Chicago is a team you love to target against. They allow a ton of rushing yards per game. I mean, they're 29th in DVOA. They're 32nd in overall DVOA. They're the worst team in DVOA defensively. You mentioned it. They don't want to win games. I mean, the running back situation is murky. I mean, DeAndre Swift, it seems like he's kind of jumped Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams didn't play the fourth quarter last week because of some foot thing. And then, I mean, like, not even on the injury report. I think it was just because they were getting smashed by Carolina and they used some Justin Jackson. But I think Jared Goff is super interesting this week because of his price tag. St. Brown, obviously, really expensive at 7,800, but he's the clear-cut number one option in the passing game on this team. I don't really trust the tight end situation. I know Zolstra had 6 targets last week. I don't think that's
3
a thing.
touchdowns.
He had how many?
3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's not a thing. Like
No,
if he scores 3 touchdowns again, 3 touchdowns on 26 yards and 5 catches. I mean, there you go. That's not a thing. I think St. Brown's the target. I think in large field tournaments, you could take some shots on DJ Chark. I think because of the matchup, you could play Goff, St. Brown, and DJ Chark or Josh Reynolds. This is a scenario where the passing game should have no trouble. The running game should have no trouble. The running game is just really murky, but I'll take some shots like on Justin Field teams with like DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams too, running it back.
Yeah, Goff double stacks absolutely in play this week. I think he's the best quarterback point per dollar on the entire week. Like people hate playing Jared Goff. I'll be very interested to see where his ownership ends up. But for 5,600, like this is the absolute best spot you can ask for in the dome. And like you think he doesn't have a ceiling. You look at some of the games he's put up here in the dome, like 29 against Minnesota, 24 against Buffalo, 37 against Seattle, 26 against Washington. Like those are tournament winning type scores. I'm very interested in Goff double stacks. St. Brown is very clearly the number one option here. You got to pay for it, but like 30 from St. Brown in this spot would not surprise me at all. I love DJ Chark as well. We've seen him kind of come to life a little bit here in the back half of the season. Was brutal to begin the year, but has kind of found a decent role here. So I do like DJ Chark as well. I don't know if I get to Reynolds, and Jameson Williams is a guy I keep just waiting for it to happen. He's just not playing the snaps right now. So like large field tournaments, again, I don't mind using Williams as the second stacking partner. I think you definitely want St. Brown in there, but if you wanted to do a St. Brown Williams, I don't hate that, just in case he does catch that 40-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, this might just be a scenario that if they're out of it week 18, Jameson Williams might be one of those guys you go overweight on because it might just be like
I think they're just being really careful with him coming back from the ACL injury, which you can't blame him.
No, yeah. I mean, DJ Chark has actually not been playing terrible. So,
right.
I mean, they have Raymond too. They're kind of crowded. So I a ton of interest in St. Brown.
Yep. Like
the price tag on Jared Goff a lot too. All right, we go from this game to this game. Jacksonville at Houston, 43.5 total. Jacksonville is a 4.5 point favorite in this one. I mean, Jacksonville, they're fighting in this AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. I mean, this is a fantastic spot. I mean, if you're a Jacksonville fan, you're like, yes, thank you. We get Houston. And Tennessee's playing Dallas on Thursday night on a short week. So, I mean, if you're a Jags fan, you're really pumped up about how this schedule is for week 17 anyway. Going to, just thoughts here overall on Jacksonville. ETN might be my favorite running back on the entire slate. I mean, this is a team that cannot stop the run. I know that Trevor Lawrence has been playing good recently, but ETN is still playing 70+% of the snaps. He's getting a ton of work out of the backfield. I love him to go over 100+ rushing yards in this game. I think he absolutely smashes. I know we're going to talk about Ingram. We're going to talk about Kirk and Zay Jones. I love Travis Etienne in this game, though.
Yeah, fantastic matchup for Etienne. I am a little bit concerned about Jacksonville playing the entire game. Tennessee is completely punting their Thursday night football game. Like they're resting all their starters. Henry is out. Tannehill is out. A bunch of defensive guys are out. Like Tennessee is just taking the loss on Thursday night. It does not matter for the standings. They match up in week 18 for the division. So this game doesn't matter to Jacksonville either. I'm a little concerned they may rest some guys in the second half here. I still like ETN. But I am a little concerned about the passing game. The way you beat Houston has been on the ground. So I think ETN could go for 100 plus yards and a couple touchdowns in the first half and still get there for 6,400. I'm totally fine with him, but I do have slight concerns just about the passing game. I don't know how much they're going to push it here.
Just so really quick to play devil's advocate, right? With Miami, with Bridgewater starting this week, wouldn't there be incentive for Jacksonville to win this game and still be alive? I think they're still alive with a Miami loss. And if they lose to Tennessee, they're still alive, depending on what Miami does in Week 18. With the wild card, not the
card, you mean? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, this game does not matter for the division. You might be correct on the wild card there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look into it more. Like, I think everyone should look into it more because it's the Dolphins and the Patriots would be tied. I don't know how the tiebreaker is. If the Dolphins lose, Patriots would. I think they are tied. I think the Dolphins have the tiebreaker. I don't remember exactly, but I mean, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars would still be live, depending on what happened in Week 18 to the Dolphins and Patriots. And I think,
but if Jacksonville wins Week 18, they're in regardless, and they would have to win. They have to win Week 18 to be in regardless, and no matter, like, they win the division if they win Week 18.
No. I think there's a scenario if they win this week and lose next week, there's still a chance. But I have to look into it more.
Okay, you could be correct there. Yep.
Look into that because I mean, you have me scared now. I like ETN a lot. But yeah, that worries me a little bit for sure.
Yeah, if they win this and lose Week 18, they would end 8-9. The Dolphins would have to lose both of their games, and they'd be 8-9 as well. I don't know what the tiebreaker is.
Well, the Patriots too would be, because if they beat the Dolphins, they'd have 8 wins. So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm gonna pull it up really quick, but continue your thoughts on Jacksonville. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought I had read that they still have a chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you're saying there makes sense. I don't know exactly what the tiebreakers are, but they would be tied record-wise with potentially the Dolphins and the Patriots, depending on what those two teams do. So, yeah, you may have a valid point there. Like I said, ETN is the way I want to play this game.
So Tennessee doesn't have a tiebreaker over New England or the Jets, for what it's worth. So maybe that's why they're just punting this week. They can't get in unless they beat Jacksonville next week.
Right. And I was under the impression Jacksonville was in the same situation, but I could be wrong.
Miami clinches with a win this week and it wouldn't matter.
Right. Okay. So if Miami wins, so I don't know does Miami play late?
They play at 1.
Okay. Well, they're still not going to know unless they go in at halftime and Miami's up 30 or something, but that's unlikely to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I hope so.
So yeah, that probably disregard what I was saying there about not caring about this week. Tennessee is the team that's completely punting, but Jacksonville still has some incentive here.
I mean, everything I'm reading says Jacksonville has the tiebreaker over New England, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say. We'll know more next week, unfortunately. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I hate the idea that Tennessee is doing what they're doing, but it's also a short week as well. And Tannehill's not 100%, where I think like Jacksonville has been playing really well recently. And I mean, there's no reason for them to, I mean, they've won 3 straight now and 4 of the last 5. So I mean, you go back to that loss against Detroit, and it was a huge loss if they do rest people this week for DFS purposes. So, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, pay attention to any kind of news because I know Trevor Lawrence is dealing with like a little bit of a toe injury. Gosh, if everyone plays though, I mean, this is a fantastic spot.
Yeah, another dome game. So, yep.
What is Evan Ingram is eating his Cheerios.
What?
He's eating his Cheerios. He is crushing. He is.
I haven't heard that expression before. I don't think
you never heard eating his Cheerios. He is back to full strength, man. He looks fantastic. Trevor Lawrence trusts this guy. Like, I mean, I've come on here the last couple of weeks and said this Evan Ingram thing is a fluke, but he keeps proving me wrong. So I can't believe you never heard of eating your Cheerios before.
Eating your Wheaties, I've heard.
No, Cheerios too. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Maybe it is Wheaties. Maybe
I
I'm
guess
just
in the
up.
Midwest, it's Wheaties for sure.
Listen, Florida does things different, all right? I mean, Jacksonville is a Florida team, so I mean, he's definitely eating his Cheerios. Where else? Listen, I've interrupted you so many times. I feel bad. Sum up your Jacksonville thoughts.
ETN is the for sure way I want to attack this. I have a little pause on the passing game. Just Houston's been better against the pass. Lawrence is dealing with that injury. Yeah, I'm still on the fence if I'm playing the passing game here, but I'm definitely interested in ETN.
I mean, I don't love season-long questions, but this is for the finals. Richie Smalls, who's in chat all the time on YouTube, Ingram or Andrews this week?
Wow, that's wild that's an actual question. But obviously Andrews, Lamar probably not playing. I think I have to go Ingram.
35.5 total. That game is ugly.
I think I have to go Ingram there. That's wild that's a conversation, but
I mean, there's no reason for Andrews to even play this game with them. I mean, I don't think they're going to catch the Bengals, and Lamar not playing. I mean, for me, I think it's Ingram. Tyler Huntley at quarterback in a low total game on Sunday night where really the Ravens have clinched and they have nothing to play for the rest of the year. But, I mean, I don't expect Lamar back until the playoffs. So, I mean, that's – anyway, go to the Houston side of this one. Man, the Jags defense is so bad against the pass. And Houston loves to throw the football. I don't know what to think here. I mean, we talked about Brandon Cooks last week on the podcast, and he had 9 targets. He scored a touchdown, luckily, because he didn't do much with his 9 targets. But Davis Mills is going to chuck the ball. Royce Freeman is going to run the ball. I don't love Royce Freeman. I mean, I don't love Burkhead. I think you take some shots on Cooks if you're running ETN or any of the Jacksonville players. Cooks would be my favorite run back option, but it's really not saying much outside of the fact that he's just so cheap. Brandon Cooks is 4,800 and he's capable of breaking 60-yard touchdowns. So what are your thoughts on Houston?
Yeah, Cooks is the only one I have interest in here for Houston. The running back situation, Freeman's been getting all the work, but the efficiency is just atrocious with him. Chris Moore's kind of disappeared since Cooks has come back. So with Cooks back out there, he's the only guy I'm looking at. I'd have slight interest in Akins, but if I'm playing this game, I'll probably have Ingram in it. Unless I'm just running like an ETN Jaguars defense, which is probably the first way I'll play this game. But if I'm using Jacksonville pass catchers, the first option for me is going to be Ingram. So that means that I don't have a slot for Akins. I'm not doing 2 cheaper tight ends. So Cooks would be the only option I'm considering from Houston.
For what it's worth, I think if you're playing ETN, you could take some shots on the Jags defense. Mills has thrown an interception and at least 1 interception in 7 of the last 8 games. So, I mean, Houston's just so banged up that I think even the Jacksonville defense is not great. They're in play. If you want to do an ETN Jacksonville defense stack, Jacksonville defense is 3,600, more than you want to pay for the Jacksonville defense, but they do get after the quarterback. They do force interceptions. So, I mean, I don't hate it with ETN if you don't want to play like Cooks or run it back. That's an option for sure. All right, we got Cleveland at Washington, 40.5 total here. Washington, a 1.5-point favorites. This is a football game. It's happening. It's happening on Sunday. Do you have any interest here in the Cleveland side of this game?
Deshaun Watson has just not looked great. Washington's defense looks much better now with Chase Young. They were playing better before Chase Young came back. Now that Chase Young is back, I think the Washington defense is pretty legitimate. The way Watson has looked, I just don't have any interest here. Even Nick Chubb is still pricey. hasn't seen the production in a long time. I don't think this is the spot here against Washington where I'm hoping that he breaks back out. Amari Cooper on the other side of some Washington stuff, maybe. Njoku, I think, is in play, but I'm not using Watson. It'd simply be Cooper or Njoku as a run back for me.
I like the Washington defense in this game. I don't really have a ton of interest in Cleveland. The game conditions last week sucked. I mean, I don't want to say like Watson could have done better, but I mean, the conditions were terrible for both teams. Definitely better conditions this week. That was the worst weather game that we've seen in a long time. You know, Kevin Roth was talking about that as well. So maybe this is a week that I don't know if I play Deshaun Watson, but he is really, really cheap at 5,800. It's going to click. He's talented. It's going to click one of these weeks. And I don't know if this is necessarily the week. Like you said, this defense is definitely better, a much better second half defense than they were earlier this year. So I don't think I play Watson. If you're running a Millie Maker team on like a ticket or something and you're like, oh, I got to be different, a Watson, Cooper, Njoku stack, I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. I probably don't get there. I don't build enough teams to get there. But if I was running 150 this week, I'd have at least one Watson, Cooper, Njoku stack. It's going to click. He's going to have that week, and it's going to click. Cooper, clearly the guy that he's going to target the most. Njoku has been very involved. So, like, if you want to play those guys, I'm worried that, like, Nick Chubb is going to start seeing, like, a 60-40 split with Hunt now that Cleveland's, like, out of it. So I worry about that a little bit. I mean, there's no reason for them to get Nick Chubb hurt here in the last couple weeks of the season. This is a team that they're going to have Deshaun Watson all season next year. They have talented young players around him. We'll see where they're at. But, yeah, I mean, game-wise, outside of just like a stack to say like it's going to click, I don't have a ton of interest. And I do have interest in the Washington side of this game. I mean, Brian Robinson seems to be the guy. I mean, he's looked really good here recently. Kind of struggled last week in the game, going up against San Francisco. But what did we expect? We expected him to struggle against San Francisco. We expected this whole offense to struggle. Carson Wentz starting. I mean, that doesn't shock me, honestly. I think that Heineke played well, but I think like they brought in Wentz to, you know, kind of see what he has. They technically still have a chance to make the playoffs, which is right. They still have a chance, right? Cowboys have clinched a playoff wild card, and it kind of comes down between like the Giants, the Seahawks, and the Commanders, right? Oh, and the Lions and the Packers. So I mean, the NFC will know a lot more like next week, I think. But I think, from what I remember, there's opportunities here for them to still make the playoffs. Washington,
yes,
they're seventh right now, right?
Yep, they're currently in the last wild card spot.
Yeah, I think they have the tiebreaker on Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay. So, I mean, I think Wentz is your best chance to win. Where do we think the production goes? I'm a Dotson fan. I have become a Dotson fan. I think that if we go back and we look at the beginning of the year, Carson Wentz was looking at Dotson a lot. I mean, look at like what was it? Week 1, week 2?
Week 1, I think he caught 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a guy that already has a red zone like rep. 4 touchdowns in 4 weeks with Wentz at quarterback in the first 4 weeks before Dotson got hurt. So I like Dotson a lot here at 4,600. Someone that I was way overweight on last week had a solid game. You know, because I played McCaffrey and I was like, oh, I'm going to run it back with Dotson. Good job, Christian McCaffrey. Pour one out. But yeah, I mean, Dotson. No, like, what do we think? Okay, hear me out. Large field tournament wise, hear me out. There was a huge role at the beginning of the season for Curtis Samuel at Wentz at quarterback. Do we think that picks up again, or do we think that like it's just gonna go away again? I mean, they play these 3 guys. They play a good amount of snaps each of the 3. Logan Thomas had some, targets last week, but like Curtis Samuel had something going with Wentz earlier in this year. 20 fantasy points, 23, 13, and 8 in the first 4 weeks. Am I overthinking this? Like, I think like it might be crazy, but I think like it could work.
I don't think you're overthinking it. I had the exact same thoughts. I love Terry McLaurin as a player, but unfortunately Carson Wentz does not. Like, he had like an 18% target share with Wentz under center, and that ticked up to like 25% with Heineke under center. I don't think that we can trust McLaurin with Wentz back at quarterback. So if I was ranking the Washington receivers, I love the Dotson call. I totally agree with you. I think he's a very talented rookie. He's shown flashes of being a legitimate wide receiver here. So Dotson is number one. I'd put Samuel second and McLaurin third. I completely agree with you. I think Dotson and Samuel are both probably sneaky good plays. And I agree with your Robinson call as well. He looked really good for the 4 weeks leading up to that really tough matchup against San Francisco. We've seen him get a ton of work here recently. He's clearly surpassed Gibson. Robinson and Algier, who we mentioned, are very similar plays. Between those two, I would lean Robinson. Cleveland's run defense has struggled all season long. So I think Robinson is a great play. I don't know that I'm stacking Wentz, but I will take some shots on Dotson and Samuel for sure.
This might be like the weirdest game stack that works this year, like this week. Like this, it shouldn't work, but gosh, I mean, like a must-win spot for Washington. You know, Watson wants to kind of get his feet under him here in the last couple weeks, you know, finishing out the season. Gosh, man, I like Wentz is 5,100. If he was like a little bit more expensive, I don't think we could like have the conversation for Wentz, but this is a guy that was throwing the ball.
Is the 600
times.
savings from Goff enough though? Like Goff is in a
no, I know Jared Goff. Like, listen, I'm going to do my rankings later, and I'm going to be Goff is going to come in way ahead of Wentz. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in a large field tournament, does that savings like this dude was throwing the ball 40 plus times a week to start the season? Like, I don't know. Before he got hurt, like we talked about him so much as a guy that like had the potential to throw for like 300 yards. Like, I don't know. This is a tough matchup. Maybe this isn't the right matchup to do it, but I mean, it's kind of a must win. They got they get the Cowboys next week. Does the Cowboys, if like they can keep Washington out of the playoffs, do they play everybody? I mean, you don't know. So I think this is a must win spot for Washington, and I think I don't think 5,100 is the craziest thing. I did not come on this podcast thinking that I was going to like anybody from this game for what it's worth. So maybe I'm just way off. New Orleans at Philadelphia, 43.5 total in this game. Philadelphia 6.5 point favorites. I mean, it's still a question mark if Jalen Hurts is going to play or not this week. They get the Giants next week. I mean, do they rest him this week and try to beat the Giants to win the division? Because they haven't clinched the division, right? With Dallas winning last week against them, I think that
they would have to lose both weeks. But they play Dallas in week 18?
No. They play the Giants in week 18. Washington plays Dallas in week 18. But
if Philly
I don't
loses
know if
both,
Jalen Hurts plays this week.
I don't think Jalen Hurts plays.
So, all right, we'll start with the New Orleans side of this game first. Anyway, a lot of potential injuries here on the New Orleans side. Kamara, quad injury and personal reasons, did not practice Wednesday. Ingram's on the IR. That would be a really interesting situation if he were to sit. Olave dealing with like a hamstring injury. He doesn't really have a lot to play for outside of like having a rookie season over 1,000 yards. I don't know if he has incentives or not, but I mean, it's 60 yards away for him. So yeah, I mean, what are we thinking here for New Orleans?
I think Hurts sits, and I think Philly still absolutely rolls them. New Orleans just like they're not a great team at this point. Kamara, like I can see Kamara requesting a trade in the offseason. Like just the way he's been used this year is hard to fathom. Like he was so good in the passing game, and they took that role away from him, and I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. So And if Kamara sits, we're talking about the corpse of David Johnson. He's 4,100. I suppose we have to talk about it, but I
I
don't.
think the hot take is Taysom Hill's the lead back if
Okay, I
Kamara
can
sits.
get on board with that, but can you play him at quarterback on DraftKings? If
Nope.
he's still tight end on FanDuel, I can totally get on board with that. But I agree. I don't want to play David Johnson, even if Kamara's out. I do have interest in Olave if he's back. A guy who's shown flashes of ceiling no matter who his quarterback is, no matter what the matchup is. Like the price is not ideal with him missing some time here recently. I think you could take some shots if you're looking to stack up Philly. Shaheed is interesting as well. He's played really well in the absence of Olave. He's 4K still. I think he's still in play even if Olave returns. But that's the only interest I have. I'm not touching the backfield no matter who's in or out. Shaheed I have interest in, and Olave if he plays.
So Taysom Hill is still eligible for tight end on FanDuel. But I don't know if you could play him. He's 6,800, Hawkinson 7K, Kittle's 74, and Kelsey's 83. So I don't know if you can play Taysom Hill on FanDuel, but I mean, I took some shots on him last week. I talked about it on the podcast last week. He scored a touchdown, only had 11.6. I needed more, but they kind of got up in that game and they just kind of controlled the ball, and the weather was terrible. I don't know. I don't know if you could pay the price for him on FanDuel, but
yeah, it's tough. I like a lot of those tight ends in that range. I talked about it earlier. Like I think it's actually a fairly strong tight end slate.
It is. It really is. I don't have any interest in the Saints. I like the Philadelphia defense. I think this is a week you could go Sanders, Philly defense, and it worked out perfectly well, even with Minshew at quarterback. I mean, we saw plenty of targets for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith last week. I think this is a game Philadelphia just gets up and they pound the rock and they win the game. They clinch home field and they move on.
I agree with that take. I'm interested in Miles Sanders for that reason. Even if Minshew's at quarterback, I see them getting the lead here. And all season long, when Philly is up at like 10 to 14 points, they're content to just sit on that lead and slow the game down. We could see Miles Sanders get a bunch of carries in that scenario. New Orleans defense hasn't been playing well recently, so I like Sanders. I'll have a few Minshew stacks if he's the quarterback, just because he's 5,500. He's one of preferred picks away from Goff. I certainly prefer Goff, but he's in that same range. Devonta Smith's price has come up after his massive game last week, so he's tough to get to at 7,100. I certainly prefer AJ Brown, even though Smith was the guy you needed last week, and Dallas Goedert is certainly working his way back into the offense. I don't mind shots there either.
If Sanders, if this foot thing really becomes a thing and they just rest him this week, or his knee, it's not foot, it's knee, I think. If he does sit, Gainwell is 4,400 and becomes like the guy that everyone's playing this week, and I don't think you can fade him. With this game script, with them having Boston Scott and other options, I mean, Gainwell probably gets 16 to 22 touches in this game if Sanders doesn't play, and that's way too much at 4,400 to be saying, hey, I'm going to fade this guy because he's going to be chalk. Don't do that.
Yeah, agree.
All right. Cruising along here. We got Denver at Kansas City, 44.5 total. Kansas City is a 12.5 point favorite in this game. We'll go. Did you see the coach's comments? I can't coach a guy that has more bathrooms in his house than touchdowns on the season. I legitly, I had to show my wife. I laughed so hard at that comment. It was it was so funny. Anyway, the Denver side first. I mean, they're going to be trailing in this game. Latavius Murray, Chase Edmonds, Marlon Mack running back situation is whatever. I mean, is this a week that we could potentially take shots on Russell Wilson, giving the big old middle finger to the coach and throwing for 4 touchdowns here in a game they're trailing, and Judy and Sutton becoming relevant? Kansas City pass defenses, I mean, this is a funnel defense. They want you to throw or run. They want you to throw, not run. I mean, so is this a week we play good old Russell Wilson?
The problem is all of his receivers are hurt. I think Judy was the one I was most interested in, but there was a pretty nasty report from practice today that he limped off the field at the end of practice, holding that ankle that he's injured twice now already. He injured it a couple of weeks ago and missed games, and then he aggravated it last game, mid-game. So Judy is very questionable, I would say. He's the guy I want to play. We've seen some really good games out of him recently, but I can't pay $6,400 from him if I don't know the ankle's 100%. So if you asked me yesterday, Judy would have been the play here. I don't know that I can trust anybody here now. Sutton and Hinton are both on the injury report as well. It's a tough situation. This is going to have to be a wait and see. I'm interested in the receivers here as bringbacks on Kansas City stacks because I certainly want to play some of that. But we just have to see how the injury report shakes out. I'm very concerned about Judy, but he's the guy I would want to play.
Oh man. Yeah. I didn't see that about Judy. I know that he's banged up. But gosh, I really wanted him to play in this game. I really wanted him and Sutton to play in this game. So, I mean, if Judy's out and Sutton plays or vice versa, they're very interesting. What's the tight end? Dulcich got hurt.
He's on there. Yep.
And who's the guy that started the season at tight end?
Alberto.
Yeah.
Akui Boonham. Yeah.
Yeah, Akui Boonham. I couldn't think of his name. So he could potentially at 2,500 be another potential tight end punt. I mean, the game script is going to be fantastic, and he lost his starting job, and the guy he lost it to is out. So, I mean, maybe you take some shots on him as like a punt tight end, but that, I mean, I don't love it. I mean, the game script is fantastic. That's what I like. I like the game script.
I mean, I agree with you. I think they're going to have to throw a ton here. And I think Russ is probably pretty pissed off about how the season has gone. So I could see him absolutely shredding if he had his full, if he had his full complement of receivers, I would probably take some shots on it. But it's really tough with how banged up they are.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Denver. This is the old big. Hey, we fired our coach. I'm gonna chuck game.
Yeah.
Just see who's in here. I mean, I don't care. Like, I will play Swan if I have to. Freddie Swan. Give me him. Russ is chucking this week. Anyway, the Kansas City side, they're gonna crush Denver in this game. I mean, Denver defense dealing with a ton of injuries as well. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Jared McKinnon has been very involved here recently. You know, Tony's healthy. MVS is healthy. Hardman's getting close to being back. Yeah, I mean, they're just kind of, you know, fighting the Bills for who's going to win the AFC and not have to play. So who's going to get that bye? What are your thoughts here on Kansas City?
I mean, I normally would come in talking about how good the Denver defense is and not being too worried about it because Kansas City can beat any defense. But the Denver defense got absolutely shredded last week by Baker Mayfield. Like, what? I don't know exactly what that was all about.
With Baker Mayfield.
So any concerns you have about the Denver defense, Denver's packed it in. I think Patrick Mahomes can do pretty much whatever he wants in this game. He probably goes out and throws for 3 first half touchdowns and they take a huge halftime lead into the locker room. They're a team that'll keep their foot on the gas though. So if Denver can fight back at all, then this has potential for shootout. So I'm going to stack up Mahomes for sure. Obviously Kelsey is the number one target here. The role for Jerick McKinnon has been outstanding recently. In a game script where Denver is able to keep this close, I love McKinnon. The problem with that is in a blowout, I'm pretty sure Pacheco's the guy they used to kill the clock. McKinnon's not that involved. So he is game script dependent, which is unfortunate. Usually when you get the pass catching back, he's pretty game script independent, but I don't think that's the case for McKinnon. Unfortunately, doesn't mean I'm shying away from him. I'll still use him. But it's Mahomes to Kelsey is always number one. I'll mix in some Juju. And probably McKinnon would be my fourth option, I guess. Tony Valdez-Scantling, I'd prefer Tony out of those two, but they're probably behind McKinnon for me.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey Juju, I think Juju having kind of a down game last week, maybe people jump off of it. I mean, the Kansas City has the second highest implied team total on the slate. They're going to score. They're going to score in bunches in this game. So it's just really, I don't know if I pay 8,500 for Mahomes. This is that conversation of like Fields and the guys that we talked about earlier. But I mean, if you want to just say, hey, I'm gonna take a floor of like 25 points, Mahomes is your guy. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that if Denver can keep this game close at all, I mean, you're gonna see a big game from Kansas City. They're gonna score in bunches. All right, cruising along here. We got Miami at New England, 41.5 total in this game. New England is a 3-point favorite. I mean, I wish a very, very speedy recovery for Tua. I saw the play that it happened, and he played again, like the second half with a concussion. And I mean, gosh, this is crazy. But as a Dolphins fan, knowing that like Tua is our best chance in the playoffs and stuff, I really wish he'd just sit out the rest of the season. I don't want to see anybody's career get ended. But anyway, not as a fan, DFS side of this game, I mean, the Miami side, gosh, they have to win this game. They really, I mean, they screwed the pooch. Have you heard that one before, Keith?
that one I've heard, yeah.
Gosh, man, they needed to win last week so bad. This game wouldn't matter as much, but I mean, Miami wins, they're in. So this is a huge game for Miami, because, I mean, if they win this game, then next week Tua can sit again and potentially play in the playoffs. And it's a lot more, it's better, but I don't know. Let's talk here. Miami. Tyreek Hill is 8,900. He still has an outside shot at the wide receiver record for receiving yards. It's Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, we saw him start in week 6 against Minnesota and play fantastic. He threw for 329 yards and 2 touchdowns, but Minnesota is the worst pass defense in football. New England is a good defense. They're good against the pass and they're good against the run. Talk to me here about the Dolphins.
Yeah, a little bit of concern with the move to Bridgewater, but the talent at wide receiver is still undeniable. We've seen Waddle just go ballistic for 2 weeks in a row. Again, it had been a while since we had seen it out of Waddle. Tyreek can do the absolute same thing. So it's not like Bridgewater doesn't have weapons to work with here. I'm still interested. Like you said, it's a must-win game. They can run shorter stuff. Like they don't have to necessarily take the deep shots and try to win over the top of the defense. They can use the talent and the run after catch of these really speedy wide receivers to still move the ball plenty fine here, in my opinion. So I'm interested in Miami. Not the greatest game environment. New England is certainly going to try to slow this down. But I think Miami is just the better team, even with the quarterback change. I'm still interested in Tyreek and Waddle.
Yeah. I mean, the ceiling that Tyreek and Waddle have is just massive. I mean, we saw Tyreek had 15 targets in that Minnesota game and didn't really miss a beat. I mean, it wasn't as good. And then Waddle had 10 targets as well. So I think they're going to have to move the ball through the air in this matchup. New England's run defense is really stout. Their pass defense is really good too. So, gosh, I mean, I hate this game as a Dolphins fan because I think that New England wins. But I think if Miami is going to win this game, Tyreek and Waddle are going to be the reasons why. So, like, that's how I'm attacking at DFS. Mozart and Wilson, they're too split. They use them both at times together. I mean, they want to use Wilson and Mozart about the same amount in the pass game and the run game. So I don't see myself playing the running backs in this matchup. So it's Hill, it's Waddle. I don't think it's Bridgewater. And on the New England side, it's what's going on with Stevenson, dealing with this ankle injury. Harris is still banged up with the thigh injury. I mean, it was good to see like Myers come back and play the last 2 weeks with plenty of targets. We know that Mac Jones has a soft spot for Myers, so maybe that's where we're getting exposure to New England is like Jacoby Myers. Kendrick Bourne, 9 targets last week. I don't know if that's sustainable, especially if Devontae Parker's back this week. What are your thoughts here on New England?
Yeah, Stevenson is the guy I want to play. The ankle is a concern, but he's played through it 2 weeks in a row. He was phenomenal against Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, struggled against Cincinnati, but Cincinnati is a really strong defense. They've been outstanding all year, so I'm not terribly concerned about Stevenson. I think he suits up for this one, and I think I'll play him. 6,800 is a fair price. He's game script proof. He gets involved in the passing game. He didn't play well last week. He even dropped a couple of passes last week. It was just not a great showing. You could tell he wasn't 100%, but hopefully with another week of rest, he's good to go here. New England wants to run the football. We know that. So the running backs are the first look for me. Stevenson is the guy, and I'm assuming that Harris is out again. If Harris makes it back, that complicates it a little bit more. If Harris and Stevenson are both out, Pierre Strong would be the guy, but running backs are where I'm looking to in this. And I think Miami can still pull this out even with Bridgewater under quarterback. So, like I said, playing Stevenson, I'm not concerned about that because he's game script proof.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the Stevenson call. I want Harris to be out. I really like Myers at 5K. Kind of offsets the price on either Tyreek or Waddle, however you approach it. I mean, we have some cheap quarterback plays this week. We have some potential cheap running back plays depending on, some injuries and stuff. So I don't think it's going to be that hard if you want to play Tyreek, but I think Myers would be like my favorite run back option here on the Miami side or the New England side.
I need to mention Kendrick Bourne too. Like we saw Aguilar, did he get benched last week? I know there was some kind of conflict or something, some altercation with Aguilar. But Kendrick Bourne got 9 targets. He's 3,500. So I don't hate that either as a run back on the other side of the Dolphins wide receiver.
Parker needs to be out. If Parker plays, I think you don't go to Bourne. So I think you have to wait and see if Parker concussion. So if he's good to go, he's good to go. Thornton's still playing a ton of snaps. I mean, not getting a ton of looks or anything, but he's out on the field a ton for New England. So if he's dealing with like a knee injury as well. So if he were to sit too, I love the Bourne call, but that's I need a lot to happen for me to get to Kendrick Bourne this week. All right. Game of the week. Just kidding. Carolina at Tampa Bay, 40.5 total in this one. Tampa Bay, a 3-point favorite. Playoff wise, this game is definitely up there as far as like game that matters this week. Tampa Bay clinches if they win. I mean, that's huge. We'll start with the Carolina side. We saw, Foreman and Hubbard just ran the football right over Detroit last week. And I mean, it's Detroit. It's not shocking at all. Talk to me here. What do you like for Carolina going against Tampa Bay?
Yeah, they've clearly shown that they want to run the football in Carolina. No matter who the quarterback has been, they've been a run-heavy team all season long. But the problem is Tampa Bay has a fantastic run defense, so I'm not sure how successful they're going to be with that game plan this week. I know Hubbard is really cheap. Even Foreman is still cheap, especially for what these guys did last week. They're just not going to be able to do that against Tampa Bay, I don't think. So I struggle to get to the running backs. Despite their performance last week, it's probably DJ Moore here on the other side of some Tampa Bay exposure. Tampa Bay even fighting for this division. It's a terrible division. It's wild that Tampa Bay is in this position. We can talk a little bit about their issues and what they've dealt with in just a second, but I think Tampa Bay wins this game. Carolina playing from behind. They're going to struggle to run the ball. I still think they'll try to run the ball. They're just not going to be very efficient. And ultimately, it turns into more passing than Carolina typically sees. DJ Moore is the guy I want to play.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I want to play Foreman or Hubbard. They're just such a split running back role. I mean, if we were going to get one of these guys for like 25 carries and the other guy not really play, I would have a ton of interest. If I was going to play one of them, it'd be Foreman, but DJ Moore has a 27% target share in this offense. He's the guy. I think Carolina plays from behind. Who knows? Who knows? Like, who knows? With Tampa Bay this season, like you said, like you have no idea. They play from behind, it seems like every game, and have to pull out games all the time. Tampa's not been good. I mean,
their offensive line is horrible. Like they do not give Brady any time whatsoever. And Brady has definitely taken a step back as well. He's starting to fall off finally, but he's not getting any help up front. Like the offensive line is just atrocious.
Brady shows up for big games. It's a big game this week. Let's talk about this Tampa offense. I mean, trying to guess if it's going to be Evans or Godwin every single week. I pick Godwin. I'm right most of the time, but Godwin is now 6,800. I still think he's very playable here. Mike Evans, 6,500. This guy just doesn't score touchdowns. He picks up like key first down, and you're like, oh man, maybe he's going to get rolling here. But it never really happens. If Julio Jones ends up sitting in this game, I think you could take some shots on Russell Gage in large field tournaments. But Chris Godwin is going to be my favorite target here. I don't hate Leonard Fournette. I think that he's an option. You know, this is a team that kind of struggles against the run. And he kind of got going again last week against Arizona. What are your thoughts on Tampa?
Yeah, so the offense kind of forced them into playing a certain way. Like Brady has no choice but to get the ball out fast. So you're seeing a massive amount of checkdowns to these wide receivers and the short stuff over the middle of the field to Chris Godwin. Like it has completely ruined Mike Evans. They cannot target him down the field, which is where he does his best work. He's still getting the targets. Like it's just that Brady usually has a guy hanging on him when he's trying to get the ball out to Mike Evans on the boundary. Like it's just not working. He doesn't have the time. And I see more of that here in this matchup against Carolina. Like they have a really solid pass rush. So therefore I'm looking at Chris Godwin. I like both running backs. I know it's a nasty split here, but they're getting so much passing game work that both of them are still in play for me. I lean Fournette. I think they trust him more with the game on the line. He's the guy they seem to go to in this must-win situation. It's Fournette over White for me, but I still think White's in play also. A touchdown and 6 receptions, and he can pay off 5,500 for sure. So, yeah, I have a ton of interest in Tampa Bay. I'm probably not playing Tom Brady. He just doesn't have the ceiling anymore. But I will play a little bit of both running backs, and I'll play some Chris Godwin.
Problem with like Tom Brady in this matchup is he's more expensive than some of these 5K guys that have similar like upside. So, yep. I mean, again, Tom Brady tends to show up in these big games, and I think he could have a really solid game this week. But the offensive line being so banged up, I think where you get Brady exposure is if you can find like his passing prop down in like the 250 somewhere. Love the over on that. It's been like 255 a lot here recently, so I like the over on that. All right, we got 4:00 games. We got 4 of them this week. Listen, we're trying to get through these games as fast as possible. I pre-warned this is going to be a long podcast. There's 13 games, a lot to talk about, a lot of scenarios. San Francisco at Las Vegas taking on the Raiders, 41.5 total. San Francisco a 10-point favorite in this one. We'll start here with the San Francisco side of things. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey kind of banged up with the knee. This has been like a rest situation here for the last couple weeks on Wednesdays. So Devo could potentially be back this week. He's 6K. Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy, 5,500. Is he in the conversation this week going up against this terrible defense?
I loved San Francisco before Las Vegas pulled the Derek Carr shenanigans. Yeah. Now I'm very concerned here. This seems like a scheduled blowout. I cannot see Jared Stidham being able to keep pace with this really good San Francisco team. San Francisco was probably my favorite team of the week yesterday. Now that we have Derek Carr off the team, basically, I don't know what to do with this.
I'm going to leave the facilities, not be a distraction.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's not being a distraction. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
McCaffrey was my favorite running back of the week. George Kittle absolutely smashed again last week. I wanted to go right back to him so badly. I just like Las Vegas isn't going to show up, and we know like San Francisco's very much like Philly. Once they get up, they're simply just going to turn around and hand it off. They are completely content sitting on a lead, slowing the game down, and killing the clock. So I'll still probably have some Purdy stacks. It won't be near as much of my portfolio as it was going to be. Getting the McCaffrey at 9K, like they're not going to use him once they get up in this game is my concern. So I'm a little bit concerned about the ceiling here at 9K. Like if they lean on TDP or Jordan Mason down the stretch to kill the clock, McCaffrey's just not going to get the work to pay off 9K. So I'm far less interested in San Francisco now that Las Vegas is doing what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to come on here and say, let's play some San Francisco defense and Christian McCaffrey, but it's really hard to say, let's pay 9K for Christian McCaffrey. And this could be easy a spot where he could just not play the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Davis Price is 4,400. I don't think I can do that on this slate. If Devo's back at 6K, I don't hate that price tag, but man, I'm with you. I was coming on. I was ready to talk about San Francisco. I was going to be excited about San Francisco. The fact that like they've already clinched their division, and it's a very, 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 very slim chance that they can win the NFC still. I mean, this is a perfect game for them to say, hey, we're up at halftime. Let the defense kind of do its thing. Christian McCaffrey, we're gonna work in Davis Price more in this one. So, I mean, for me on the San Francisco side, I want to play the 49ers in this game. I just don't know who I can trust at this part of the week. I'm going to be paying attention to like Debo's news. Is this a spot where they're like, hey, we're going to let Christian McCaffrey's knee kind of take a week off? Because then Davis Price would be amazing. So
we might get to Sunday and Debo and Christian McCaffrey are out, and then it's an entirely different story.
They have nothing to play for the next 2 weeks. They get the Raiders and the Cardinals like the last 2 weeks, and it's just like they have nothing to really play for. Their seeding's not going to change. Whoever wins the NFC South is going to be the 4 seed. They're going to be the 3 seed unless Minnesota, just falls apart. So I just pay attention to this news because right now it's really tough. If Christian McCaffrey and Debo are out, I'll probably play some Purdy Kittle stacks for what it's worth. Because that would be
Kittle
really
smashes without Debo Samuel. I've been saying that for 3 weeks straight now, and he has come alive after doing nothing all season. So yeah, I want to play some George Kittle.
Las Vegas side, I mean, Stidham's going to make his first start. Played a little bit in 2020, I think. Wasn't it 2020? Pretty sure it's 2020. Don't think he played at all last year. I don't know what to expect here. I don't think anybody really knows what to expect. He's 4,100, which is really, really cheap, but he's facing one of, if not the best defense in the NFL. They're first in DVOA. I mean, I don't see him really getting anything going. I don't think you could pay 8,500 for Devontae Adams, even if you are kind of projecting him to get 15 targets in this game. Is there anything here for the Raiders?
There's really not. And I saw this in passing, and I think it was earlier tonight when I was watching NBA games and researching for the podcast, but I'm not sure Jacobs and Adams are even playing in this game. I'm trying to find that really quick. I thought I saw a report on something like that after the Carr stuff came out. Don't quote me on that. Like I said, it was just something that popped into my head. I was like, did I really see that or not? But I'd be really concerned about who plays here for Las Vegas. They clearly have packed it in. They told their quarterback, you're not coming back, basically, by benching him. There's no way you can target this team. Like, they're facing the best defense in the NFL, or one of them at least, if you want to make that argument. But they're top 3 for sure. There's no way I can play any Las Vegas here.
The only reason that I think Jacobs, maybe plays is like Henry's out and he's the guy that like is chasing Jacobs for like the rushing. Like He's up 110 yards right now. If he can go out and get like 60 or 70 yards in this spot, he's up a ton on Henry and doesn't have to play week 18. I don't know. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any interest in the Raiders. I really don't. I don't like, unless people start getting ruled out and we can take some shots on like Matt Collins or Hunter Renfrow type of plays. I just don't see playing a ton of Vegas. Like the San Francisco defense a lot this week. Jets at Seattle, 42.5 total in this game. Jets 1.5 point.
We should probably
favorite.
the San Francisco price, the defensive price. Their defense is 2,900. They're going to be uber chalk.
Massive chalk.
Yeah,
massive chalk. Biggest misprice on the slate is the 49ers defense.
Yeah,
with you 100%. I mean, in cash, you just play it, right? You just take the free square defense and move on. In tournaments, you take some shots. I don't know where you're necessarily going to take shots. Maybe you take shots on like this spot, the Jets. We got the Jets at Seattle, like I said. We'll talk Jets first. It sounds like Mike White is going to start this week. I mean, anything seems better than Zach Wilson at this point. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. I don't feel like he's getting a fair shake, but the flip side of that is you have a fantastic defense. You have talent around you, and you're just not getting the job done. So, like, how much more of a shot should you get? Jets, what are your thoughts here on the Jets?
Real quick on Zach Wilson. How can you feel bad for him after he gets outplayed by Mike White? Like, Mike White is better at this point. Like,
I'm human, okay, Keith?
I mean, yeah. I'm interested in Mike White, I think. The Jets have shown a willingness to throw plenty with Mike White, 44 attempts and 57 attempts in his last two starts before his concussion. So I think they can go right back to that. Seattle certainly has a horrid run defense, but the Jets don't have any great running backs left. Like Zonovan Knight, I'm interested there, I suppose, but like he just hasn't gotten it done. He's kind of fallen off. Michael Carter has played better than him, but he's still not getting the carries. Carter is clearly the passing down back. I'm not sure that the Jets are going to be trailing in this one. So I'm concerned about the roles for the running backs. I think logically it makes sense to look at running backs and see which running back we can play, but I'm not sure that there's an answer there. So I'm interested in Mike White and some passing game. Tariq Woolen, the Seattle rookie corner and late round rookie corner, has played phenomenally this year. So I have my concerns about Garrett Wilson. I think Elijah Moore out of the slot is my preferred option. It's been a rough season for him, but we did see him kind of come to life when Michael White took over at quarterback. Elijah Moore at 3,500 is my favorite Jet.
Yeah, I mean, could just potentially get force the ball. I mean, I don't know. Davis is the perimeter guy, isn't he? Like Corey Davis, Moore would be the slot. Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe I don't know. Maybe Moore.
Elijah Moore for sure. I don't know if Woolen shadows. It's not something I look up generally in my research, but if Woolen doesn't shadow, I still have interest in Garrett Wilson. I think he can win in most matchups. He's shown to be a very talented wide receiver. He's going to see targets. Can he get open enough is the key. He's 5,500. I'm certainly fine taking shots on Garrett Wilson. I'm not sure that Corey Davis can win any matchup. So probably will stay away from Corey Davis. He's certainly going to be on the boundary and see plenty of Woolen. Elijah Moore, just like Woolen doesn't go into the slot. I do know that. So Moore probably has the best matchup, but Garrett won't see Woolen 100% of the time, I don't think.
Woolen has been so good for being a 5th round pick. He's been in gym this season insane for this team. Yep. So what a find. I mean, Seattle in general, they've been so terrible against the run, but they've been really good against the pass. It's some 4th fewest, I think, fantasy points to opposing wide receivers this season. So I think you have to temper your expectations a little bit in this spot. But I mean, if I'm playing, I take some shots on Wilson. I take some shots on Moore. Maybe this is a game that Conklin has a good game. he's someone that was doing okay. He had 18 targets in 3 games with Mike White. So maybe Conklin.
Good call.
As a cheap tight end. But yeah, I mean, Knight and Carter just kind of splitting carries and work and snaps. I think if I was going to take a shot on either one, it would probably be Carter, because I do think Seattle scores in this game and the Jets are playing from behind a little bit. I mean, Seattle, you have to think Geno Smith is just excited for this game, going up against the Jets and being like, hey, here I am. I'm not bad, but you think I was. What are your thoughts on Seattle?
Yeah, tough spot, I think. The Jets defense is very legit. We just talked about Seattle's rookie corner. The Jets have the best rookie corner in the league, if not the absolute best corner in the league. Like, Sauce Gardner has been phenomenal this season. So it's a tough spot for Seattle. Kenneth Walker's availability is interesting. Really hope he is able to play. I think he impacts the overall efficiency of the offense. If Kenneth Walker is not able to play, I'm very concerned about Seattle and their offensive efficiency. I have respect for the Jets defense, so I'm hesitant to load up on some Seattle here. I think Walker is fine at his price, assuming that he's healthy. Like, DK Metcalf can certainly win at any time. I'm not loading up on a ton of Seattle stacks here. I think Kenneth Walker would be my favorite play, followed by Metcalf. You can play some Noah Fant too. Disley has been put on IR, so Fant theoretically should run a few more routes. He's still only 3,400, but tough matchup here against the Jets.
Fant's still dealing with that knee injury too. His snap count has been not the best in the world. I think he only played like 55% of the snaps last week, 52 and 54 the last 3 weeks. So really hasn't played over 60% of the snaps. He hasn't ran over 23 routes in the last 3 games. So I'm definitely a little concerned about Noah Fant with this knee. Definitely, you nailed it, right? Like the Jets corners have allowed, the perimeters have allowed the least fantasy points to wide receivers this season. They're really good. This is a really tough matchup for Metcalf. I think if Goodwin doesn't play and we do get news that Lockett's going to play, crazy enough as it is, I think a guy like Treadwell could be very interesting here at 3K. Not the sexiest play in the world, but at 3K, I'm pretty sure he worked out of the slot last week. Let me check really quick. So yeah, I mean, he runs almost 35% of his routes out of the slot. If Lockett is out, maybe he goes out to the outside. I want to see if Goodwin is out with the shoulder wrist and Lockett plays, I have interest in Treadwell, as crazy as it sounds. And it's really just a 3K shot in the dark. But I really like the Jets defense for what it's worth. I think this is a fantastic spot for the Jets defense. I think they're the best tournament pivot off the 49ers defense. They had big games here earlier this year, and I think this is a game where Mike White kind of just controls the game if they can potentially do that, and like the Jets defense shows up big here against Seattle. Jets defense is no joke. They're very, very good.
Yep.
They need a quarterback. The Jets, I mean, with Breece Hall, right?
Yep.
Like, they have talent, man. Garrett Wilson, they have talent. All right.
Maybe Derek Carr ends up there. I don't know.
I don't think Derek Carr was the problem for what it's worth. I tweeted this out earlier today. I don't think Derek Carr was the problem. That's another day. It's not a day for 13.
I'm guessing you're leading head coach there then.
Yeah, definitely head coach. All right. Minnesota at Green Bay, one of my favorite games of the weekend. 48.5 total. Green Bay is a 3-point favorite. Must-win game for Green Bay for them to stay alive. I think they have to win out. And, I mean, they still need people to lose for them to get there. But, I mean, they're in must-win situation. Aaron Rodgers is 6K. I played him some last week on the Christmas Day slate. I mean, it wasn't great, but he outscored Tua, and that's kind of what I was hoping for because no one was really great. I mean, the biggest thing here...
Was the day before? Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say the biggest thing here is Christian Watson playing or not. Because if he plays and he's good to go, he's my favorite wide receiver on the slate. If he's out, it's huge. But we'll start with Minnesota first. The Green Bay Packers can't stop the run. I know that Jefferson's having a season. TJ Hawkinson finally getting the touchdown. Like it was going to happen, right? The positive regression was going to happen. Monster game last week. Monster game. 16 targets in that game against the Giants last week. Like it is clearly Jefferson and Hawkinson now. Like you can't play a lot of Thielen or KJ Osborne most weeks. It's Hawkinson and it's Jefferson. Both of those guys are fantastic plays. Jefferson's closing in on the receiving yard record, right?
Yep.
I think he has a better chance than Tyreek Hill now. Yeah. Dalvin Cook is an excellent, contrarian tournament play, but Kirk Cousins, man, doing his thing. And this team is rolling. They still technically have something to play for with, trying to clinch the home field advantage. If Philly loses and they win, I think it's like a coin flip or something. Not like an actual coin flip, but I think it could go either way in week 18. But Minnesota wants to win. First of all, Minnesota and Green Bay don't like each other, and this is the perfect opportunity for them to knock them out of the playoffs. So talk to me here. What do we like for Minnesota?
Yeah, Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. Totally agree with how you broke that down. Jefferson chasing that receiving record. Things like that do matter at the end of the season. Like we have seen teams actively target guys to try to get them records. And it's very much within reach for Jefferson. I think he needs to average like 110 yards over the last 2 games or something like that. Jefferson's my favorite play in on the Minnesota side. They've been very pass heavy recently as well. I know they fell way behind in Indy, and Kirk Cousins ended up dropping back 54 times, but even last week he dropped back 48 times, and 3 weeks ago against Detroit he dropped 1 time. So just enormous passing volume coming from the Vikings here. Jefferson's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Hawkinson has seen a fantastic workload since coming over to Minnesota. Like I love both of those pass catchers. I'll have a couple Cousins stacks, but that price at 6,400, I think I can get the majority of his production just by playing Jefferson and Hawkinson. So I'm not even sure I need to include Cousins in that. Like I could go down and I could stack up the Detroit game with Goff for much cheaper and still include Cousins and Hawkinson in my build and run it back with Watson or something like that. And I love playing that game this week, this game that way.
Also, if you're the Vikings, I think you want to stay in the 2 seed. So, I mean, not only do you want to knock Green Bay out, but I think you want to stay in the 2 seed. I think you'd much rather play like Washington or Seattle or Detroit instead of playing like the Giants. The Giants are like a scary, sneaky good team that have a potential. I don't know. I think that's where I would be at anyway. So I don't mind Dalvin Cook as a tournament play. Jefferson and Hawkinson. I don't know if I play Kirk Cousins this week. But I mean, 6,400 is not the craziest. Like, if you're on the like train of like Hurts doesn't play, Mahomes blows out Denver, Fields doesn't like run the ball really well, like then we're getting into like Herbert, Cousins, type of plays, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff type of plays. So I don't think Cousins is out of the question this week. And the flip side of this game, like I said, I like Aaron Rodgers. I just want to see who's going to be playing, and like I have a ton of interest in Watson if he plays. If he's out, Romeo Doubs is someone I'm going to be way overweight on this week. Way overweight on if Watson sits. Like this is a guy that kind of curved a roll earlier this year when Watson was banged up. He could smash at 4,700 against the worst pass defense in the NFL.
Yeah, I have a lot of interest in the Green Bay wide receivers. I don't know that I want to stack. Ross has not shown a ceiling. Like Green Bay runs the ball so much, even in the red zone. Like it used to be, like when Rodgers had Adams, even if they were on the 1 yard line, he would always just throw the ball to Adams, and like so his passing touchdown equity was enormous. He does not have that any longer. I'm not sure he's thrown for 3 touchdowns in any game this year. One game this year, he has thrown for 3 touchdowns. So I'm concerned about Rodgers' ceiling, but it's the best matchup that you can ask for. Minnesota is terrible against the pass. So I do like the wide receivers for sure, but I probably only play one of them in a lineup. Watson is my favorite. Hopefully he plays. Agree. 5,900, far too cheap for what he's done recently. And I like the Dobbs call as well. Even Alan Lazard at 5,400, absolutely in play. Like, if he's the guy that catches the touchdown, he's going to put up a big week and easily pay off that 5,400. So I'm interested in all 3 Packers wide receivers. I'm probably not getting to Rodgers though. I'd rather go down to, before it was Purdy, Goff certainly. I wanted to play some Purdy. Not sure I'm getting there now, but there's a couple cheaper options that I prefer over Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer the cheaper options too, but I think you have to, this time of the year, I feel like you have to, this is a must-win game. Like, so I feel like you have to kind of incorporate that into like your thought process. Like, I will say, like, Aaron Jones, he's been playing through like this knee and ankle injury. If he sits, man, I love AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon, someone that can catch the ball in the backfield. He's someone that would be not coming off the field in this game. I mean, I don't think they use a ton of Patrick Taylor if Aaron Jones sits. So AJ Dillon would be a guy I would be very overweight on as well. But if Watson plays, ton of interest. If he's out, ton of interest in Dobbs. I have some interest in Lazard. Even in large field tournaments, because of his price, I think I could take some shots on Randall Cobb. That's just how bad the Minnesota pass defense is. Finish it out. Week 17. It's so weird because we have one more week, but
right?
We
Forever.
got the Rams.
Like our entire lives, it was week 17 to end the season.
No.
And then 2 or 3 years ago, it all changes.
I know it still throws me off because like week 17 has always been like one of my favorite weeks to play because you just have so much news going on.
Yep.
So we'll get that next week.
Yep.
Anyway, Rams, Chargers, the Battle of LA, 40.5 total here. The Chargers, a 6.5 point favorite, probably not enough. We'll go Rams side first. Baker Mayfield, like you said, he was playing the guitar last week and just absolutely destroyed Denver. I want to see him land somewhere and like get a starting gig, whether like Stafford retires and he stays in LA or whatever happens. Like, I don't think Baker Mayfield's that bad. I mean, I don't think he's great, but I also think like Carolina's pass rush pass protection wasn't the best. And anyway, what are your thoughts here on the Rams?
Oh man, I don't know. Cam Akers blew up as well last week. So this Rams situation, like last week, it was we have no interest in playing them. They're a complete mess, and then they come out there and just torch Denver. Baker looked good. Cam Akers looked amazing. So now they're back in play, I suppose. Cam Akers at 6,100 against this Chargers awful run defense, I think is my first point of attack. I don't know that you can trust the role, but if he has anything similar to what he saw last week, he's too cheap for that role in this matchup. You're a little bit worried about the Rams falling behind, but if they play like they did last week, I'm not sure that they'll be that far behind. So I am interested. It's Akers for me first. Higbee obviously has had a massive role with Baker. I think you can go back to that. Ever since Kupp went down, I've been waiting for this Higbee role. Like, they have wide receivers whatsoever. Robinson on IR as well. Higbee was literally getting screen plays schemed for him while Cooper Kupp was on the field. And then he just disappeared for multiple weeks. And it's like, why aren't they using Higbee anymore? Well, we saw him go back to him last week. So Higbee is a fantastic play, 4,600 at tight end. I don't know if I'm touching the wide receivers. It's like they just don't get enough production. Van Jefferson is probably the most talented, but Atwell's earning targets, Powell's earning targets. Like, it's just a mixed bag at wide receiver, which makes it really tough to stack with Baker. I mean, you could just do a skinny stack, I suppose, with Baker and Higbee, but I don't think I'll be doing that. I'll probably just play Higbee on his own or Cam Akers on his own.
I ended up on Akers quite a bit on Sunday's slate just because of how the slate kind of shaped up at running back. But Definitely didn't expect what we got from him. I mean, I don't think you can really trust the running or wide receiver situation. I mean, I don't think I want to trust Baker Mayfield anyway, but I have a ton of interest in Akers. This is a great matchup for him. If you think they're going to get behind, maybe it is Higbee, but I mean, tight end is pretty loaded this week, so it's really hard for me to trust Higbee. But I mean, looking what he's done the last few weeks, he's getting more involved with Mayfield. So I think Higbee is at 4,600, very playable in this game. So the Chargers side, I mean, this is a pass defense you want to attack. They're not great on the pass defense. They've been really good against the run this year. Eckler's kind of banged up right now. Fully expect him to play. I mean, they were very careful with him last week against the Colts, as they should be. I'm pretty sure they clinched the playoff spot. So, like, they're really not playing for much outside of maybe potentially taking the 5 seed from Baltimore and getting a little bit easier matchup. But, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I think you want the 5 seed in the AFC. I think you'd much rather play like the Jags or the Titans than the Bengals for what it's worth. But anyway, talk to me. What do you like here for the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of interest in the Chargers. I think Eckler's status matters a little bit. I mean, I'm playing the passing game either way. But if Eckler is out, like we could see Keenan Allen literally have 15 to 20 targets. He almost had that last week with Eckler on the field. So give me Keenan Allen. He's the first priority here. Eckler is priced up. I don't know how healthy he is. Don't know. Lost my train of thought. Like the workload is a concern dealing with the injury. Like they don't have much to play for. If they get a big lead, I could see them taking Eckler off the field and just using Kelly to kill some clock. So I prefer the passing game here. I think Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Everett did not see a target last week, which was weird. Parham came back. I don't know how much that affected him, but Parham did see a couple targets. So I probably just avoid the tight end situation. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams are how I want to play this, I think.
Allen, man. I mean, there's just no going wrong with Keenan Allen right now. Like, we might not see him week 18. But this guy is just a beast right now. Like I said, I think if you're the Chargers, you win this game and see how everything kind of shapes up. And if you have a chance to pass the Ravens and be the 5 seed next week, you play your starters. But if that game doesn't matter, 6 or 7 seed matters though as well. Like you don't want the Chiefs, I don't think, or the Bills, whoever ends up winning the division. So yeah, very interesting. Like the AFC top end is so wide open, where like the NFC top end is just like it looks like it's going to be the Eagles, the Vikings, the 49ers. I mean, the Bengals and the Bills play on Monday night, and that game matters so much for the AFC. What a great football game Monday night's going to be anyway. All right, morning grind game time. We're here. We got there. It's now Thursday officially. So there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast today. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X is basketball. Just kidding.
I was like, wait a minute.
I really like. I actually was like reading off my basketball sheet. My bad. Quarterback for 300 plus passing yards. Listen, Keith, it's 12:30.
It's late.
I have a newborn.
Past your bedtime.
Yeah,
No,
way
used...
past my bedtime. So,
come on, you're used to the long hours with the NASCAR stuff over the weekends. So you pull plenty of late nighters.
I don't know what you're talking about. I go to bed at like 6 o'clock on NASCAR nights. There you go. Maybe 6 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, quarterback, 300 plus yards. Who do you got?
All right, give me Jared Goff. Like, I just don't see a way he fails in this spot against a terrible Chicago defense indoors. Good spot for Goff.
All right. 300. I knew you were going to take Goff after you liked him. If I knew Judy and Sutton were going to play, I would totally take Wilson here. I don't know if he plays, if they play. Give me Kirk Cousins knocking the Green Bay Packers out of the playoffs this week.
I love that.
Low-owned running back for a touchdown. We actually have projected ownership. First draft projected ownership, which is always nice. Give me a guy you think is going to be low-owned that is going to score a touchdown this week.
Sticking in the same game environment, Khalil Herbert is back. I think it's going to keep the ownership lower on David Montgomery than it should be. The Bears are still going to run a ton. Hopefully a ton of it is with Fields because I'll have a ton of exposure there. But you talked about the pivot to Montgomery. I love that call. I think he scores.
And you're killing me, Keith. All right, hold on.
2 for 2 on that? Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of expected the Jared Goff one, but I didn't see the Montgomery one coming. I don't think ETN's going to be low owned.
Who else did you talk about?
I do we think like Cam Akers is going to get a ton of ownership after last week?
That one's up in the air. He's cheap enough. I could see him getting steam. Right now, he's not projected for it, so he's yours if you want him. I like it.
Yeah, I mean he's projected for 6%. It looks like right now. Yeah. So we'll go Cam Akers.
I like that call.
If ETN stays at 13%, I'm going to be like 4 times the field on him for what it's worth in this one. So, all right, moving on. We got a quarterback wide receiver stack for a touchdown.
I'm going to go Justin Herbert to Mike Williams. Keenan's been the volume guy, but Mike Williams is the touchdown guy. So give me that stack.
I love that call on FanDuel. Like, I like Mike Williams a lot on FanDuel. I still think Keenan Allen's the guy on DraftKings, but I think Williams is the guy on FanDuel. I love going off the board. I am going to go... Gosh, I wish I knew if he was playing. Give me Colt McCoy to Hollywood Brown.
I like it. Pivot. More of that coming up in just a second, but I thought you were going the other way on that.
Yeah, you thought I was going to go Hopkins.
Yeah.
All right, wide receiver for 8+ targets. Who do you got this week?
It's DeAndre Hopkins. I think Colt McCoy is a significant quarterback upgrade for him. McCoy, he's been around the league a long time, veteran guy. He will get Hopkins the ball. Easy guy for 8 targets.
I like that one. Listen, I could easily just say St. Brown, but I'm not going to, and he's the easy answer. But I'm going to go to Dotson. Must-win game for Washington. Tough matchup against Cleveland. I think Dotson is someone that was very trusted, and I think he's going to get 8+ targets in this game. So
love it. Keenan Allen, the other guy, that's just an absolute lock, but that was too easy also.
I'm not taking those guys. Jefferson is like Jefferson's the lock. Like this guy, he hasn't had, I think he's had double-digit targets in like 6 straight games or something. It's something crazy, but anyway. Tight end for a touchdown, not named Kelsey Kittle Hawkinson.
Oh, you took my Kittle play away from me.
Not giving you Kittle.
All right. Ooh, there's a couple I like. I'm surprisingly interested in tight ends. I think there's a lot of good plays at tight end, sneaky, which that's not been the case all year.
Too.
Yeah. Deciding between 2 here. I'm gonna stick with that awesome game environment. Give me Cole Kmet.
Okay. Didn't see that one coming. All right. We should have noted, by the way, I'm not saying this, but we should have noted that like if Cade Otton does not play with this quad injury, Cameron Braid is 2,800 and would be a very stellar cheap tight end play. Just want to note that really quick. But my tight end for a what's that?
I said, yeah, that's a great call.
My tight end for a touchdown this week, whether Wheaties or Cheerios, I don't think it matters right now. Evan Ingram, Jacksonville, we don't know if this is a must-win game or not for Jacksonville, but I don't know. I like this spot for Evan Ingram. Defense for 10+ points. Who do you got this week at defense? And you cannot say the 49ers. That's not happening.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. Can't take them.
Give me the New York Football Giants against Nick
Oh my
Foles.
gosh, I thought you were going to take another one.
No, you talked about the Jets a ton.
I
I
was
knew you
like,
were going
this
there.
guy.
This one.
I was about to say, I'm going first next week. Changing the game. No. Listen, it's the Jets for me. I talked about it in depth when we were talking about them. I think they're the tournament pivot for me. I think Washington is a really interesting tournament pivot as well. The 49ers are in a fantastic spot. Single entry, you're going to see them 50 to 60, 70% owned on this slate. They could easily put up 20 points, and we could the pivot might not work. So you still want to get exposure to them in tournaments. Just where you're getting exposure to the 49ers defense, make sure your team's different. Like, you're not stacking Chicago, Detroit with the San Francisco defense. You could do that in cash games, but don't do that in tournaments. It's just not going to be different. Unless your secondary stacks are like 2% owned guys. So that's my thoughts on that. Favorite money line against the spread? Anything standing out to you here?
The Houston Texans have been playing some great football, surprisingly. They lost to the Cowboys by 4 points. They lost to the Chiefs by 6 in overtime, and then they beat the Tennessee Titans. They're 4.5-point dogs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to take them outright. Plus 180, baby.
Houston money line. I like it. I'm going to go.
Plus, I want the Bears to get the first pick.
I'm going San Francisco minus 10. I think this line's too low. Yeah, like, if agreed. Adams and Jacobs like even remotely get like 50% of the snaps, like, it's just the 49ers should absolutely crush the Raiders in this game. So give me San Francisco minus 10. Over under, anything that jumping off the page to you here?
Going right back to that game, San Francisco, Las Vegas, under 41.5. Quarterback change at Las Vegas. I mean, obviously there's crazy unrest in that locker room at this point. I don't think Stidham is stepping into a very good situation. San Francisco has one of the best defenses in the NFL. As long as San Francisco doesn't put up like 35, we should be in good shape here.
All right. I like that one. I am making sure that I wrote it down right. Yeah, it is. Kansas City over 44.5. I know that Denver's just like their whole offense is banged up right now, but Kansas City is not typically a team that lets off the gas. We saw them kind of not score a ton against Seattle last week. The conditions in that game weren't the best. It was super cold. It was windy. So this is a team that has scored. Kansas City has scored at least 24 points in all but 3 games this season. So give me the Chiefs over 44.5. Denver with something to prove too with firing their coach this week. Player prop. What do you got for a player prop pick this week?
Just love the role we've been seeing from James Conner. He's playing 95% of the snaps. He's getting a better quarterback. I think that improves the offensive efficiency for Arizona. He's sitting at 71.5 rushing yards. I like the over on that.
I like that one. Gosh, it pains me to say this, but give me Sam Darnold over 187.5 passing yards this week. It's on MGM. I was looking at it before we got started. We have him projected at 209. Like, that's a huge, huge difference. Like, what, 20, almost 22 yard different between his projection and his prop. So, listen, I'm not like advocating playing Sam Darnold, but I think with DJ Moore, with this offense, like, he could easily throw for 200 plus yards in a game where it's a must win for both teams. The run defense is really good for Tampa. Yep. And I mean, he's thrown 250 and 225 the last couple weeks. So give me Sam Darnold over 100. Was it 180, 187? Yeah. 187.5.
I like that a lot. That Tampa Bay run defense you touched on is a great point. Carolina has tried to run the football all season long. I don't think they can in this spot. Love that one.
It's weird. Yep. It is weird. Ty Jerome, by the way, I hope you guys listened to me on the podcast yesterday. He He did exactly what I thought he was going to do tonight.
Nice. But he
Um,
didn't beat Alec Burks, though.
no, he didn't. He didn't. You should have played them both together. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's get our sleeper 2-pick. We're going to go for a 3x here on the week. Or it's 2x now. I forgot they changed it. Or no, it's all in. All in is 3x. That's right. Who do you got on sleeper this week?
Guy that's come back to life here the last couple of weeks with the quarterback change. Just a massive target share in the last 3 weeks for Drake London. Awesome game environment in the dome. He's sitting at 57.5 yards receiving. I like the over on that.
All right. I'm going to go Leonard Fournette over 76.5 receiving plus rushing yards this week. Again, must-win game. He's so involved in both the running and the passing game. Love this pick here with Fournette. And yeah, I mean, this is a guy that I'm gonna be overweight on. So they changed the line for London. Of course. No, I think it's working again. Working again. This is working. We're in. We got London over 57.5 receiving yards. Fournette over 76.5 rushing and receiving yards over there on Sleeper. It's in the Grinders squad chat. Promo code Grinders. 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Under 2 hours. I'm surprised. Keith, any final thoughts? Make it quick. We got 3 minutes to standard 2.
I was going to say we just squeaked under 2 hours. Still the longest one of the year, I think. But 13 games.
Wait till next week.
Yeah, we had a couple long ones to begin this season, but we made it through. It's been a fun season. 1 week left. Excited to make some money this weekend.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. Over 2 hours next week. No doubt about it. No question in my mind. Over 2 hours. Actually, it might be under just because so many teams might be resting people. But still talking through those situations are always fun. So that's going to wrap it up here for week 17. We'll be back talking NBA tomorrow. Hope everyone has a fantastic NFL weekend. We'll see you again next week.